All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Jackson. I'm from LinkedIn Learning. I'm very excited to be here today to talk a little bit about LinkedIn Learning and how you can use it as a faculty member. So some of you have already been putting in the chat, and I would love anybody that just hopped on to tell me a little bit about the discipline that you're in and teach, and how familiar you are with LinkedIn Learning. If the answer is absolute, I don't know anything, that's totally fine. It gets me knowing who's in the room. And while you're doing that, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a customer success manager here at LinkedIn Learning, which is really just your point of contact for everything learning needs. So I work with higher ed partners across the Northeast and a few states in the South, really just supporting learning and development needs across multiple different departments, faculty, students, and staff, and ways to support any kind of gaps in learning, and ways that you want to upskill and just support students. So super excited to be here. I want to talk to you a little bit more today about how you can use LinkedIn Learning as a faculty member to support your students, but also just to support your own personal and professional development as well. There's a component within LinkedIn Learning that sometimes faculty use it just for students, but there's so much really great content that could be used for your own personal and professional growth too. So I want to make sure that you know what's available to you as free seat through through your campus that you could be utilizing. So it looks like we have a nice array of different disciplines on here, which is awesome, and some familiarity, and some people that may not know too much about it. So that's awesome. We can talk a little bit more about it today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And give me a moment. All right. All right. If anybody could just give me a thumbs up if you see my screen. Cool. Thanks, Dan. All right. So basically, I want to take a moment to dive into our learning outcomes for today. My plan is I would love for you to leave here with an understanding of the value of LinkedIn Learning both as a faculty member and for your own personal growth, for finding relevant content for your own curriculum and your personal development, and to share content with students and how the best way to share content, what to use it for, where to find it, and just other resources that we have that we can help to support you. As we go through today, if you can just throw any questions in the chat, even as we're going along. We'll take about 10-15 minutes at the end for questions. So if I don't get to it in the middle, definitely we'll get to it at the end of the session. But I know if you're like me, the minute a question pops in, it's always nicer to just pop it in the chat so you don't lose it. So feel free to use that chat feature. So LinkedIn Learning's mission is to empower every member of the global workforce to learn the skills that they need to advance their career. And so in this section and in this webinar, we're going to talk a lot about LinkedIn Learning and how you can help and support your students, especially as they're going and exploring different career opportunities and really solidifying their career journey, and ways that you can support them within your courses. Maybe specifically and technically in your courses, or more as soft skill development and ways that you can supplement your courses. So LinkedIn Learning has a couple of different facets. We have world-class content, so highly quality professional produced content, and presented all from the leaders in the field. So in order to be a LinkedIn Learning instructor, we go through a rigorous process to become a LinkedIn Learning instructor. We create all of this content. We're not grabbing it from other places. And these are leaders in their fields and in their industry. So you can feel very confident pulling any courses or any videos from LinkedIn Learning, knowing that it has been very much vetted and from leaders in the field talking about what they know and what they've experienced. Just a fun fact, our studio in Carpinteria is actually one of the largest production studios north of Hollywood. So we do a lot of our actual production of all of these videos in our California office. We care very much about engaging the learner experience. So we've built a highly engaging learning experience that exceeds high expectations we know that our learners have for our content. So many of our courses offer things like quizzes throughout and exercise files to help the learner engage with the learning and the content, knowing that that engagement is often going to help with knowledge retention and often application. And then strategic insights that allow for that data-driven personalization. So we have things like data-driven course recommendations based on what you've learned in the past, or maybe roles that you may have or hold, have had in the past, or maybe certain skills that you're developing or want to develop. So we're very strategic with what we recommend. And a lot of them are, I have to say, from my personal experience, I love the recommendation feature. I find really great content that's helping me in my own career journey. So how does LinkedIn Learning help support you as a faculty member? So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today, but we can help you with curriculum support. And we'll talk about different ways that you can utilize LinkedIn Learning in your own classrooms, your own professional development as you're thinking through what your next step is or what else you're interested in, and ways to grow your career. And then your own personal development, maybe something outside of maybe your discipline, but you want to learn a little bit more. So let's dive a little bit more into course and course development. So many of you obviously are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy and the 6 levels of cognitive learning there. And so this idea of flipping the classroom is always a great way to utilize LinkedIn Learning within your courses. It allows you to go deeper with students at a high level versus instead of having them go high level on a project or when they're not with you. So what does that mean? You allow students to watch informational content outside of class and then having them engage in those high level discussions or projects or that application period in class in front of you, getting to that higher level mastery and thinking, or providing students with additional support. So thinking through if you have a particular performance task or end of semester course assessment, maybe it's a presentation on something or it's a particular format, making a video to display a certain learning of certain concepts. You could give certain content to support students if they may not know how to create a video or a presentation. Maybe they're presenting on something and you allow them to have that support of presentation skills and how to effectively communicate. All of those skills and knowledge that they need to have in order to do well on assessments, but maybe you don't have time to talk about it in your courses. So we see this a lot. For example, is working very closely with an accounting professor, and she talks a lot about needing help with for her students with certain needs within Excel. She does not have the time to be able to go into all of those different components of Excel in her classroom. And so she leverages LinkedIn Learning to be able to fill in those gaps for her students and scaffold that learning, but allow her to get to the content that she needs. So a nice equity approach to allow students to be able to access their content and do really well if they're proactive in using those supports. And then I've also seen it as a textbook replacement. So it's a great asset to students who may be struggling. They also to be able to expand further with this use of exercise files and engaging in content that's in a different format. So a lot of, and I'll show you a little bit later, but our format is a lot of the courses are broken down into smaller sub videos. So this idea of micro learning and smaller chunks, video learning may reach certain students. So it's a great way to kind of flip things around in terms of your content. And also students don't have to pay for a textbook. Now they have this seat. So lots of different reasons why you may want to think through ways to incorporate LinkedIn Learning within your courses. One concern I hear a lot though is from my higher ed clients and my faculty members are, what if you don't have content on my specific discipline? So I teach anthropology And I don't see a lot of courses on like what I'm teaching, the specifics around anthropology. Well, we have a lot of soft skills and those supplemental skills that you need in order to thrive in any college environment and courses. So things like Excel, writing skills, study skills, presentation skills, effective communication. So there's ways to support the students, as we talked about a little bit before, about using those soft skills to be able to support the technical content that's coming from you. So I'm going to go in and actually show you a demo of LinkedIn Learning in a moment, but I did want to take a time to talk a little bit about the blended learning features within LinkedIn Learning that you may not be aware of, that students can definitely benefit from the accessibility and reinforcement side. So this idea that there's 24/7 access on computer, tablets, and mobile. So we do have a LinkedIn Learning app. And what's nice about it is you can make any course into an audio only or offline listening. So almost like podcast format. So this feature is available on our app. It's really, really handy, especially knowing that all of us are on a screen a lot of the day. And so even if it's a 10-minute walk where they go and listen to a couple of videos, or they're commuting from one class to another, or walking from one place to another, maybe you're using LinkedIn Learning for your own personal development and you're commuting to work. So it's a nice way to kind of get in that learning without feeling like you'll have to plan out a whole hour of my day to get this content. It's this idea that we can really be learning at any time. There's also course recommendations from your organization. So your organization can actually provide you with a few course suggestions that they have for you. So it's a nice way to, if you don't know what to dive in first, your organization might be recommending certain content, and I'll show you where that is on the site. And then also course recommendations based on your LinkedIn Learning LinkedIn profile. So one question I always get is, I may have a LinkedIn profile, is what's the difference between LinkedIn and LinkedIn Learning? So there are actually two separate instances. You do not need to have a LinkedIn profile in order to have access to LinkedIn Learning. Everybody on campus, faculty, students, and staff have access to LinkedIn Learning through your campus and organization. You can choose to link those, and there's lots of reasons why it's a benefit. You don't have to though, so we do give you that option. But what's nice about linking your LinkedIn profile with your LinkedIn Learning account is that you can, if you complete a course and you earn a skill badge, you can put that onto your LinkedIn profile. So think about students that are now going in and interviewing and really kind of creating their brand and who they are as a professional, and are now trying to be noticed by recruiters. Recruiters look at that. So they're looking at skills and ways that that make that particular student stand out. I was talking to another faculty member yesterday where she was telling me a story about a particular member of her department. They had a lower GPA for an internship that they had a cutoff on a particular level of GPA. He was below that cutoff, and he actually took a couple of courses that were very relevant to the internship that he wanted to take. He put that badge on his LinkedIn profile and actually landed an interview and got the internship. So it was nice. It's a nice way for students that especially are super proactive, can grab those skills, put them on their LinkedIn profile, and get noticed by recruiters and other people in the field. We have 50 to 60 courses that come out each week. So a lot of content coming out. And we're also always vetting our content to make sure that it's up to date. So I'll show you the LinkedIn Learning blog, and it's linked here, and I'll send this deck to Dan following this meeting today, so you have it. But there's a LinkedIn Learning blog that will always keep you up to date. You can subscribe to it. You don't get a bunch of emails. It just tells you what's been added to the library so that you know if anything's new has come. We always recommend to follow authors on LinkedIn. So if you have a LinkedIn profile and you want to follow those authors, these authors are often highly engaged in the LinkedIn community. They have a lot of great content, so they might post on the LinkedIn side, really great articles, share different articles. So I follow a number of them, which is nice just for my own personal development, great ways to just think through things in different ways and viewpoints. So if you're finding that you're watching a course, really truly love the author, or you're seeing that author over and over again, you may want to follow them on LinkedIn to get even more content. You also can learn at your own pace by changing the playback speed. Really important also to highlight for students. So this feature is available in the app, and app or on linkedinlearning.com, but you can make something slower or faster. So for some students, they may want to speed it up. Maybe it's a soft skills and they want it to be at 1.25. It's a great way to kind of speed things up, but maybe somebody needs it a little bit slower to retain that content. And so they can actually slow down the pace of the video if they need. We also have closed captioning and exercise files that a student or a learner can engage with. And then we also have these certificates for any LinkedIn Learning course that they take. So if you're a learner and you take a course within LinkedIn Learning, you might get a certificate, and you can actually choose to put that on your LinkedIn profile if you would like. All right, sorry, my computer, there we go. Sorry, I should have been clicking around. Also, just note one more thing is that you do have a notebook feature and timestamp notes, which I will go through when we do the demo. So what I like about this, I actually was a former K-12 teacher, and looking through some of the different features, it's nice because there's a lot of different ways that a student may interact with the learning. And so things like notebooks and playback speeds, exercise files, you're hitting all different kinds of learners. So I really feel like there's a place for every type of learner here at LinkedIn Learning. So in terms of curating your own lessons and creating visibility and accountability, you do have the ability to upload custom content into LinkedIn Learning. So we do have something called the Curator role. So many of you are probably just, when you sign in, are going to be a learner within LinkedIn Learning, but you can ask your admin on campus for the Curator role. It's something that we highly recommend for faculty to take a look at. And it's not an admin permission, it's more just the ability to bring in your own content if you choose to, and then actually collect some of the information and courses and videos into collections, which are pretty much like folders, or learning paths, which is a more prescribed way to go through the content. If some faculty members do just really innovative ways of using those learning paths and collections to either mirror our course as supplemental material, but ways to just really make it also easier for the student. And I've also seen faculty members use it for department meetings and for development for a department, or just overall professional development, and creating videos so that you can go and search, but you may not have to. You can just click on this collection and see all the videos that pertain to a certain topic. That's very relevant to the point of your ultimate goal for learning. So custom content you can upload into LinkedIn Learning. So maybe you have certain videos that you have, or certain slide decks or PDFs or other materials that you want to bring in, and you want to create one place for either a student or for yourself to go. That's a great way to utilize LinkedIn Learning. We can bring in other content and couple it with some LinkedIn Learning, so that you're getting the same outcome, but you're not creating multiple places for a person to go for that learning. You can target a specific audience. So if you have a specific person you want to recommend content to, or maybe it's a group of people, your class, a whole cohort, there's different ways that you could segment different audiences. And then I'll show you a little bit later too, the ability to recommend content. So you can recommend content to, again, a specific person, a group of people, and there you can apply a due date so it reminds them. We'll talk about that a little bit further in a demo. And then you do have some results too. So especially if you're the curator role and you create a learning path and you share it out to students, you can actually get some reporting on who has completed a learning path. So helping you with some of the reporting aspect of it. So before we dive in to some of the demos, I wanted to call out, you may be saying like, this sounds great, but I don't know where to start, or what if I don't know what courses to take or engage in or start with. So I'm going to just call out here the Course Content Center. So I linked here our Course Content Center that has everything from content releases to curated content maps, taxonomy guides, and instructors highlights. So there are a ton of already created learning paths to take a look at, and we update this quite frequently. So we have everything from diversity, equity, inclusion mappings and blended work environments. Also here, just some other evolving challenges and certain content maps we have for this content as well. So always go ahead and check out our content guides, and then also just some information on some authors. And then we also have a content mapping. So the link is going to take you to an Excel sheet. And what that actually can do is if you're thinking, all right, I have a bigger project, I want to use LinkedIn Learning, different videos for multiple aspects of my course. So maybe I want to use a LinkedIn Learning video every week, and I want my students to be able to engage in the video and then come to class. So we have discussions and we can really get into that higher level learning. But I don't know where to start. What are the best videos? What are the best courses? I need some help picking those out. We do have a service called content mapping. And so what that entails is really just filling out the content mapping request form and telling us a little bit about the skills and competencies that you are looking to achieve in the learning path or collection you're creating. A little bit of a description. We asked you some questions around your audience and difficulty level, things like that. No more than a couple of questions, and depending on how much content you want, may increase or decrease the time, but definitely not a huge time investment. And what that looks like is you actually send that over to us, and we have that send that over to our content team, and they'll pull the course IDs and courses for you. And then that way you can take a look at more of a tailored list and then decide, I want to put these into collections, I want to recommend these out, I want to create a learning path. Just kind of takes some of the lift off of you, knowing that everybody is super busy with lots of things going on. So this might be a way to leverage this and kind of take some of the lift off of you. And then before we dive into the demo, just wanted to call out that personal and professional development for you as faculty members. So we have content across well-being, hybrid work, diversity and equity, and passion projects, and so much more. We have over 16,000 courses at LinkedIn Learning. And so we have everything from how to teach in an online environment and more pedagogy around teaching. But we also have things on well-being, how to build resilience, how to develop a career plan, how to manage stress. It's the last 2 years has been very challenging. And so just some well-being content. I engage in the well-being content quite frequently. It's just a nice kind of break and to think through how I can be interacting and kind of taking care of my well-being even at work. So there's some really great well-being content. I definitely would say to take a look at some of that. And then also just great content, even for everything, diversity and equity. There's some great content around inclusive mindset, inclusive leadership, passion projects. Maybe you want to explore something outside of your discipline. So you may be super focused on your courses, but you have so many interests and passions outside of that. So maybe you want to take a course on piano and guitar playing, or you want to sell a novel to a major publisher and you want to know how to do it. Or maybe you're super into video editing and photography. There's lots of different ways to also for your personal development that may be a little bit outside of what your professional area is. But just know that there's a lot of different content. So we always we're big on to lifelong learning and always learning, and there's some really great content in there as well. All right, so I'm going to dive into the demo. Dan, has there been any questions to answer while I'm queuing that up?
There is one from Julie. How do we access LinkedIn Learning through our campus portal directly through the website? I can answer that if you want me to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. There is a LinkedIn Learning website. I will copy that URL into the chat. Hang on a second. There it is. Copy. There it is. So at the top of that page, there's a logged in to LinkedIn Learning. And then if you put in your LakerNet ID and password,
and they would use their SSO credentials, right?
Yep. That will use your local account in order to log you into LinkedIn Learning. If for some reason someone goes to LinkedIn Learning and tries to log in with their Oswego email, I believe it redirects it to our page for authentication. So if someone does go a different route, there's a couple different ways to get to the same place. So
perfect. All right, so this is what it looks like once you're logged in. So you'll see here tips for using Excel. You have here, this is our banner. So you can showcase certain courses here, but you also have a weekly goal. So you can set a weekly goal for yourself. I have to get learning this week. It's been a little bit of a crazy Monday and Tuesday, but I set a goal of 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes a week. You can edit that goal. But it's kind of like a Fitbit for learning, keeps you accountable. There's what courses are in progress and what courses that you may have saved. And then there's also some courses that are from your organization that have been recommended. And then as you scroll down, you'll see, as we talked through before, the recommendations. So these are recommendations based on things like my role, skills I'm interested in, top skills at my company. I have connected my LinkedIn profile with my LinkedIn Learning account. And so it's pulling some information. We never share personal information between LinkedIn Learning account and LinkedIn. But they are able to grab some of the things they know that I'm interested in, my role, my industry, so that my recommendations are super targeted. And I would say from experience, they are. I never really get very far in this page because I always find something that I ultimately want to click on and start learning. So there are skills that I follow. There's also these ideas of live office hours with experts. This is one of our newer features. Where you can actually hop on office hours with one of our authors and they can answer some questions. There's some features on instructions. You can follow them with LinkedIn. And just some top skills at my company, things like that. So definitely utilizing the recommendation page is always a great place to start. But as you're engaging and looking at content for your courses and for your students, you may want to go to the browse button. So here at the browse, if you don't know where to start, we have all of these different libraries here, and you can go ahead and browse by topic. You'll see here, there's a business, a creative, and a technology library. But if you know a particular skill or subject or software that you want to highlight, you can go ahead and put that in there now. So let's just say I want to talk about effective communication. I have 1,134 results on effective communication. I have everything from learning paths created, courses, videos in here, links that maybe were brought in by my organization. So I can use these filters at the top, which is always a great way to filter down because sometimes you'll get a lot of content. So you'll come here for language. Maybe I just want to see courses and videos. I just want to see content by LinkedIn Learning. and not, I may not want to have the content that was brought in by my organization. And then maybe I just want to 10 to 30 minutes. So just from that, I went from about 1,200 to 89 results. I can go even further with levels, certifications, and then all filters go even deeper. So you can really be very specific. We have everything from continuing education, which I'll show you in a little bit, subject areas, particular software. So the filters really help to drive down. That's why I know we have content mapping and we have those content services, but quite often the searching is very intuitive and very easy to use. The first couple are always usually the ones that I want. So definitely ones to highlight here. So let's just say I want to highlight this course around speaking confidently and effectively. So you'll notice here that our courses are broken up into different sections. So this one's actually only one section, but sometimes you'll see multiple sections and the different sub videos underneath. So you can actually pull out a particular video. So if you don't want a student to have to take an entire course, but you just want them to focus on giving your audience only what they know, you can highlight a particular video for them too. But you'll see here all of the minutes, how many minutes it is, which is nice because sometimes you can just say, okay, I have 10 minutes between my first class and my second class. I'm going to go ahead and start watching them. They'll check them off as we go. But what's nice about it is that you can kind of go through in that micro learning aspect of it and not have to feel like I have to dedicate an entire hour to this course. I also have here the closed captioning options and the playback speed. This is where I can change my playback speed, my volume, and my full screen. This is also where I can share content. So if you want to recommend this content to students, you can give it to one student. So maybe there's just a small subgroup within your course that may need this extra support. You can send that to them. Or maybe you're putting it to the entire group. So you can set up groups and actually share that out. You can include a message. And if you want, you can actually include a due date as well. The due date will remind them that this is a course that they've been recommended so that it reminds them to take it. You also can share out a link. And what's nice about that, is that you can link right to in terms of your syllabuses and things like that. I would definitely find a place where students are going over and over again to highlight LinkedIn Learning if you're using it in your courses. Between the email and chats and everything, we're bombarded with information all day. So finding either your syllabus or a main place where you put your information for your course to highlight LinkedIn Learning if you're using it either as a supplemental resource, a textbook, or in that flipped classroom approach, a way to just so students are aware that this is a resource that they should be using. You'll want to grab the link from here. I would highly recommend not taking it from the URL up here. This is going to be coded for your SSO for how you are signing in. So this has a unique identifier for you as your login. So if you want to share a link, you're going to want to come here to share and link. And then just for the features below, you'll see here the instructor. You can learn a little bit more, the learning groups. If there's any exercise files, it would be linked here, and a little bit about the course details. Any Q&A, so questions that people have been asked, and you can submit questions, answers. Our authors are often very, very responsive, so it's a great way to engage. Notebook, if you want to take some notes, this is personal to the person taking notes, so they can jot down certain notes. And then of course the transcript too. What I do love is you can search within the transcript too. So if you're going back and be like, what did that author say about this particular thing? You can go ahead and search within the transcript. If you were given that curator role, you would have a little button up here to add, and I'll show you I'm given an app. This is what the admin portal looks like, but you would have the ability to add up here. So you would have that button there, and you can create learning paths or collections here as well. So if you wanted to create a learning path, I could add a title and a description. And then from here, I can start to grab content and put in my learning path for what do I want students to do first, second, third. I can bring in my own content, my own videos, TED Talks, other videos I found from other places, slides, resources, and collect them into one place. Same thing with collections, same idea, a little bit more free form in terms of how a learner would engage, more of a folder format where they can go and choose which content they want to engage in first. So I know we're coming up on time. I did want to highlight a few more resources here. So this is the LinkedIn Learning blog if you want to keep up to date on courses that we're putting out. Again, 50 to 60 courses a week, and we do take down and refocus courses to make sure that they're up to date. So definitely subscribe to the LinkedIn Learning blog. We also have, I would definitely highly recommend bookmarking the LinkedIn Learning Help Center. We have how-tos on pretty much everything. So a great place to learn. We also have things like getting started with LinkedIn Learning. So if you have a course, if you want to just get your feet wet on what is LinkedIn Learning and want to go a little bit deeper, there is a course on that as well. And then lastly, review certifications. So we do have some certification preparation, which is nice, and then some continuing education. So a lot of times, sometimes the certification prep is costly, and what's nice is you can do this right here on LinkedIn Learning. So everything from Autodesk to, you have a lot of here. So LEAD, Juniper, so there's a whole bunch of certification prep programs we have here, and then any continuing education like NASBA. And so lots of different ways that you can support that certification process as well. All right.
Did have one question that came up while you were going through the review of the videos. Is there a way to see what students are viewing the content?
So if you recommend, there is, and then if you also create learning paths and collections, there are.
Okay, and they need to be curators in order to do that, correct?
In order to make collections and learning paths, yes.
I don't think faculty are by default. That's something that we have to set up on the admin side, correct?
Yeah, so it's you just have to go into your admin portal and change who should be a curator. But a great way, it's a popular role to have as a faculty member for those paths and collections specifically.
Okay.
But you don't have to be if that is something that you don't want to do right away. You do have the ability to recommend particular courses. You just can't organize it. So that's the beauty of the curator role. You're not getting so many other features. You're just getting the ability to create a path and a collection.
Okay.
How long are the courses? They're different lengths. So everything from very short to longer, couple hours. They're always broken up into sections and then into subsections, and it will tell you how long they are. So not a great answer because it varies, but definitely you always see the time, and then it would always been broken up, and you can always grab pieces of videos to put in collection or path too.
So Kate, you asked how to access. Are you talking about how to log into LinkedIn Learning?
Yes, initially. How do I access it?
The link that I put in the chat. If you click on that,
okay,
there's a link at the top of that page that you can log in and access the content.
Okay, and your office will grant access, or
you have access now.
Oh, okay.
You're just not set up as a curator yet. By default, you're just a viewer, right, Caitlin? Pretty much.
A learner, yeah. So you can still recommend. You can still recommend content. You can do everything. The only would be the change of permission to curate paths and collections. But you have you're still a learner, you still can recommend content and look at content, which is great. Other things to note too, we have lots of I'm actually doing helping career services at your university, doing a couple of different presentations for your Imagine 22. So we're going to be talking about things like rock your profile and how to change, how to just bulk up your LinkedIn profile, how to have a presence on LinkedIn to help students on campus to just be able to resume build and grab those network and grab those skills. One thing I always highly recommend for faculty is encouraging students to ask for recommendations right on their LinkedIn. So you can always give recommendations as a way for recruiters to see that right away. LinkedIn is different than your resume, but it's a great way for them to show who they are as professionals. And one way to do that, especially to separate them and getting their first job, is that recommendation feature. So a great way for faculty to help to support that student in their career journey.
Julie, to answer your question, I'm the local admin for the service. So you can contact anybody on the call that would like to be curator can contact me and I can set that up. Yes, we thought so. And your other question, can a faculty member upload large copyrighted videos to support a course? There isn't any sort of video management service in LinkedIn Learning, correct?
It would just be when you upload your content, it would just be for your organization. You wouldn't be seen by the greater LinkedIn. So anything that you're uploading and any paths or collections that you're creating are only going to be seen by who you give visibility to see, and then two, it's just within your organization. In terms of copyrighted videos, I can double check that for you. But I do know that it's just kind of, it's tailored to your organization, so you have to worry about people seeing it outside of your campus.
Josh, you have a question?
So you said there's like 16,000 courses in there, and you were suggesting linking them, for example, to share with students if it can help with a class. Within Oswego, are we recommending that we do that within Blackboard D2L learning management system, or is this something separate? Would we referring students to?
You want me to answer?
I can start and then you can
Okay.
you can answer too.
Okay.
So you can use it as a supplement. You can always use, there is some level of integration that we have at Blackboard, and then knowing that you're moving to a different LMS, we can talk about that further. But oftentimes I see it, you can either use it through Blackboard if you have that integration set up, but you also could have them go right into LinkedIn Learning. So you have a course built out, you're teaching your course, but it's more of a supplemental material rather than in place of.
And we normally do have people set it up through Blackboard on campus. And I imagine, once we make the move to the different LMS, we'll probably have that tie-in set up as well. So
would the process be like, suppose Caitlin showed us how to use that link feature. Would we just link within our Blackboard course or D2L to that video, and would it work?
I can't remember how the tool works in Blackboard.
Oftentimes you do grab the SSO link, but maybe something to look on the whoever's your Blackboard admin on the shell.
Yeah.
I know that works that way with other LMSs.
Kathy, my coworker Kathy would know, but I'm pretty sure that you can search and then select the videos that you want to integrate through the tool. So I think it has that functionality, but I haven't played with it much lately, so I can't recall. But we can find out.
Any other questions? As you do have questions, feel free to reach out. We have lots of great resources available. I can even put in I can send Dan some great resources too to support, but of course, take a look at the deck following. I have linked some things in there too as you go back and look. But it's a great way to just to supplement some of the work that a lot of the work that you're doing. And we have a lot of really great courses. So I guess what I would say would be step one is to go in and just activate your seat if you have not been in LinkedIn Learning before. That way you can start to poke around and see what's available and get to know a little bit more about what LinkedIn Learning and how it really connects to you and your courses.
And we'll be updating that webpage that I put into the chat. I haven't put any new content on it in a while, but we plan on having a marketing campaign revolving around LinkedIn Learning coming out for the spring semester. So you'll all probably see more about some of the features that we're going to talk about and kind of publicize on campus. So you'll probably be hearing more about LinkedIn Learning moving forward in Oswego Today and on some of the social media channels on campus. So
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining.
thanks for presenting, Caitlin. That was helpful.
No problem. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Caitlin, thanks everybody.